Welcome, dear listener, to this quiet space where we invite you to simply be. Let the day's hurried pace begin to recede, like the distant echo of a fading dream. Allow your body to settle, your shoulders to gently soften, and your breath to deepen, finding a rhythm that is slow and profoundly peaceful. Tonight we will embark on a gentle journey, a story woven from the quiet threads of self-discovery and the silent wisdom that emerges when one begins to truly see. It is a narrative not of grand adventures or bustling crowds, but of a subtle internal shift, a delicate turning point in the landscape of the soul. A story of a man, and perhaps a reflection of the quiet stirrings within us all, as he begins to wake up to a different way of experiencing the world, and in doing so finds a profound and enduring peace. Imagine, if you will, the soft dawning of a new day, not with a sudden burst of light, but with a gradual brightening of the sky, a gentle unveiling of the world from the velvet cloak of night. This is how the awakening often begins for a man who starts to truly see, not with a jolt, but with a slow, almost imperceptible shift in perspective. It's like standing on a gentle slope and gradually realizing that the ground beneath you is no longer quite level, that the familiar landscape is subtly changing. And with this quiet dawning, a natural inclination arises within him, a gentle, unforced pulling away from the familiar hum of the crowd. This isn't born of resentment, dear friend, nor is it a sudden dramatic departure. It is far more subtle, more organic, like a leaf detaching from its branch, not in anger, but in the natural culmination of its own quiet cycle. He doesn't pull away because he has grown to dislike people, or because his heart has hardened against the warmth of human connection. No, his spirit remains open, but the way in which he used to connect, the well-trodden paths of social interaction, they simply stop making sense to him. Picture, if you will, a vast, bustling marketplace, filled with a cacophony of voices, a symphony of daily life. For so long he moved within this market, participating, exchanging, feeling a part of its vibrant energy. But now, as his inner perception clarifies, he begins to notice the repeating patterns, the predictable refrains in the ongoing conversations that swirl around him. Most often, these exchanges seem to revolve around a handful of familiar themes: the quiet pursuit of status, the fleeting whispers of gossip, or the shared comfort found in commiserating through complaints. He listens and he observes, and he realizes that these conversations, while seemingly offering connection, often skim the surface, like stones skipping across a calm pond, never truly delving into the depths beneath. And once he begins to see through this gentle veil, once he recognizes the underlying currents, it becomes increasingly challenging to genuinely engage. It's not that he refuses to speak, or that he intentionally creates barriers. It's simply that the old scripts no longer resonate. The familiar melodies sound somewhat hollow to his newly attuned ear. He isn't bitter about this realization, not at all. There is no sharp edge of cynicism in his heart. Nor is he isolating himself out of a sense of pride or superiority. These are not the motivations that guide his quiet shift. Instead, a deeper, more fundamental change has taken root within him. He has simply, and quite profoundly, stopped chasing what others are still so diligently pursuing. He begins to notice, with a new and gentle clarity, the subtle performance that infuses so much of everyday interaction. He sees the unspoken cues, the careful calibration of words and gestures, the unconscious need to be liked, to belong, to say precisely the right thing in every given situation. It's a delicate dance, a finely choreographed ballet of social niceties and unspoken expectations, played out by almost everyone, including, once upon a time, himself. But now he perceives the stage, the costumes, the well-rehearsed lines. and without making any grand announcement, without drawing attention to his quiet observation, he begins to subtly step back from the spotlight, receding into the gentle shadows of his own authenticity. People might still offer a friendly wave, a passing smile. They might still engage him in polite small talk about the weather or current events. From the outside, perhaps, little seems to have changed, but for him, something fundamental has indeed shifted. The old connections, the ones built on these subtle performances and shared unspoken agreements, no longer hold the same meaning. He understands now that in many ways, the connection he thought he had was never truly real in the first place, but rather an intricate tapestry woven from social expectation and mutual validation. He didn't actively cut ties, dear friend. He didn't burn any bridges behind him, nor did he issue any declarations of separation. He simply, quietly, stopped pretending. And when a man stops playing a role, when he lays down the mask he once wore, distance happens on its own, quite naturally, like the ebb and flow of a quiet tide. This gentle distancing, this quiet stepping back, marks the beginning of a profound solitude, but it is crucial to understand that this is not loneliness, not in the way most people understand that word. No, this is a solitude imbued with purpose, a deliberate cultivation of space. It is the necessary breathing room between who he used to be, the man who navigated the world by its unspoken rules, and who he is quietly, yet powerfully, becoming a man guided by an inner compass, by a deeper sense of truth. In this newfound space, in this quiet observation, he begins to see with remarkable clarity what truly holds people together in their social bonds. And the realization is both gentle and profound. It isn't always depth, nor is it necessarily a shared pursuit of truth. More often, it is the comfortable weight of habit, the soothing embrace of shared illusions, and the collective comfort found in familiar routines. Imagine a group of friends gathering around a table, their voices mingling in the air. He notices how easily people bond over the shared experience of complaining about their jobs, how they find common ground in the pursuit of external status symbols, or how they solidify their connections by defending ideas they have never truly paused to question for themselves. He remembers a time when he too engaged in these very same patterns. He used to believe that this was the very essence of connection, the warm embrace of belonging. But now, as his perception deepens, as his inner world quietens, these interactions, while still present, feel less like genuine connection and more like a gentle, persistent noise. A background hum that, while once unnoticed, now stands out in the newfound stillness of his internal landscape. He begins to observe how frequently people speak simply to avoid the profound, sometimes unsettling, experience of silence. How much energy is invested, day in and day out, in meticulously keeping up appearances, in the constant, often exhausting, need for validation from others, for agreement on every point, for reassurance that one is on the right path, or that one is indeed enough. And once he himself no longer feels this urgent, insistent need for those external affirmations, a quiet understanding dawns within him. He sees, with a compassionate gaze, how deeply dependent others often are on these very things, how vital these external reassurances seem to be for their sense of self and belonging. He understands too why people hold on so tightly to what feels familiar, even if that familiarity is built upon unspoken agreements and subtle performances. He still cares, deeply. He still listens with an open heart, but he no longer feels compelled to play along, to participate in the unspoken dances that once defined his social interactions. This shift, dear listener, this subtle yet powerful internal reorientation, creates distance all on its own. like a gentle breeze guiding a cloud across the vast expanse of the sky. From the outside, to a casual observer, he might appear much the same. He still shows up to gatherings, still extends polite greetings, still fulfills his duties. He hasn't vanished into thin air, nor has he become a recluse. But inwardly, something profoundly fundamental has shifted, and the people around him, those who were once intimately connected to his previous way of being, they can sense it, even if they cannot quite put a name to the subtle alteration. They perceive, perhaps dimly at first, that he is no longer trying so hard to impress anyone. They sense that he is no longer actively looking for their approval, that he has, quite simply, stopped playing the social game, the intricate dance of needing and being needed in a particular external way. Some observers, those with a more reflective spirit, might find this quiet authenticity admirable, a refreshing departure from the usual performative interactions. Others, however, might find it subtly unsettling, a source of a vague discomfort. Why? Because he is no longer easy to read. The familiar social cues, the expected emotional responses, the predictable affirmations, they are no longer consistently present. He is not performing for anyone's gaze. He doesn't offer flattery simply to smooth over an interaction. He doesn't engage in competition for the sake of winning recognition. He doesn't feel the need to entertain others with witty banter or amusing anecdotes, simply to hold their attention. And this quiet steadfastness, this gentle refusal to play the accustomed roles, makes him hard to place within their established social frameworks. People might begin to say, perhaps with a touch of bewilderment or concern, that he seems distant, or that he has grown too quiet, or simply that he has changed. But what they truly mean beneath the surface of their words is that he no longer fits neatly into the roles they have grown accustomed to seeing him play. They liked him better, perhaps, when he reflected their own values, their own expectations, their own comfortable understanding of the world. Now, however, he reflects something else entirely. He reflects a quiet strength, a profound groundedness that is not dependent on being liked, on being approved of, or on fitting into any pre-established mold. People see him, yes, they observe his physical presence, but they don't truly know him in the way they once believed they did, because knowing him now would require them to step into his shoes, to see the world through the clarifying lens he has begun to employ. And for most people, dear listener, that kind of deep introspective seeing, that willingness to challenge one's own deeply held assumptions, is a journey they are simply not yet ready to embark upon. He once held a firm belief, a conviction deeply ingrained within him, that staying connected to others meant staying intimately involved in their lives, showing up for every social obligation, actively participating in every conversation, and meticulously maintaining appearances. This was the blueprint for connection he had always followed, the map that guided his social navigation. But with the gentle passage of time, and with the subtle deepening of his inner awareness, that very definition began to soften, to expand, to transform. As his priorities gracefully shifted inward, like the turning of the seasons, he found himself naturally, effortlessly, ceasing to engage out of mere obligation. This wasn't because he had suddenly started to care less about people, or about the bonds he shared. Quite the contrary, it was because he no longer needed others to affirm his place in the world, to confirm his worth, or to validate his existence. That quiet knowing now resonated from within. He still cherishes the idea of true connection, the deep, meaningful bonds that nourish the soul, but his understanding of what constitutes genuine connection has evolved. He no longer seeks it if it depends upon constant engagement, upon the intricate dance of emotional performance, or upon the subtle, often exhausting negotiation for approval. His quiet withdrawal is not born of resentment, not of a feeling of being wronged or disillusioned in a negative sense. Instead, it stems from a profound and peaceful realization that he no longer finds intrinsic value in maintaining relationships that are built primarily on pretense, on unspoken expectations, or on a delicate balance of reciprocal social favors. To those around him, particularly those accustomed to a more transactional form of connection, where every interaction serves a clear, often unspoken social purpose, his presence might now feel distant, even detached. But in truth, dear friend, he is simply not playing the same role anymore. The script has changed, and he has quietly, authentically, stepped away from his former part. He no longer speaks just to keep the peace, to smooth over potential disagreements, or to avoid discomfort. He no longer sees himself reflected solely through other people's eyes, allowing their perceptions to define his own identity. What emerges in that newly created space, that quiet expanse between his former self and his evolving self, is not the emptiness of loneliness, but the profound clarity of self-awareness. It is a calm independence, like a deeply rooted tree, unswayed by the passing winds, an inner stability that allows him to remain firmly grounded, even as people gently come and go from his life, like boats passing in the distant horizon. He has, in this quiet journey, become profoundly honest with himself and with the world. And from that honesty, a deeper, more expansive kind of freedom begins to take shape, blossoming gently within his soul. From an external perspective, dear listener, solitude is so often misunderstood, misinterpreted through the lens of collective assumption. To most people, the state of being alone often signals a lack of friends perhaps, or a perceived absence of purpose, a feeling of not truly belonging. It carries with it the subtle undertone of something being amiss, of a void needing to be filled. But for a man who has begun to see the world with a newfound clarity, for whom the inner landscape has shifted, solitude transforms into something else entirely. It becomes a sanctuary, a fertile ground for growth, a profound and deliberate choice. He no longer feels the pressing need to fill every waking moment with distractions, with incessant activity, simply to avoid the often uncomfortable experience of being alone with his own thoughts, with his own quiet presence. He no longer actively seeks out constant company, nor does he rely on the external buzz of social interaction as a means to escape discomfort or to distract himself from the quiet stirrings of his own being. Instead, he has learned, through gentle practice and patient observation, to simply sit in silence, not to endure it, not to wait impatiently for it to end, but to truly inhabit it, to allow its profound quietude to wash over him, like a soothing balm. What others might label as loneliness, a hollow space to be filled, he now recognizes as something altogether different, an unfamiliar stillness, a profound peace that many have simply not yet encountered. They perhaps understandably equate the absence of external noise with an inner emptiness, a void that must be swiftly remedied. But he has come to a deeper realization that much of what typically fills a day, the incessant chatter, the endless list of tasks, the myriad duties that demand attention, is often just noise, simply pretending to be important, masquerading as meaning. In the embrace of solitude, dear friend, he finds the profound opportunity to see himself without distortion, without the filters of others' expectations or the echoes of societal norms. There is no one there to impress, no carefully constructed image to maintain, no performance to deliver. And that clarity, that unvarnished view of his authentic self, while it might have felt uncomfortable or even unsettling at first, like stepping into a brightly lit room after a long time in shadow, slowly but surely becomes an unwavering source of inner strength. He doesn't actively avoid people, not at all. He remains open, present, and kind. But he also no longer depends on their presence, their validation, or their company to feel complete within himself. This quiet, internal shift often confuses those around him, for they tend to assume, quite naturally, that if someone seeks solitude, they must be withdrawn, disconnected, perhaps even arrogant in their self-sufficiency. But in truth, he is none of these things. He is simply profoundly content with his own presence, with the rich tapestry of his inner world. He has faced the very silence that most people actively run from, the vast quietude they strive to fill, and in that encounter, he discovered it wasn't silence at all, but rather a deep abiding peace. As he steadily grows more inwardly stable, as his roots deepen into the soil of his own being, he naturally becomes less predictable to those around him. This isn't a deliberate act on his part. Not much of what people commonly refer to as connection, he now understands, is actually a subtle, unspoken performance, a mutual agreement to keep certain comforting illusions intact. It's a collective narrative, woven together with threads of unspoken expectations and polite fictions. Once he gently steps outside of that intricate arrangement, once he quietly opts out of that shared performance, he disrupts it simply by being present, by being authentically himself. He doesn't argue, nor does he provoke, nor does he attempt to convert anyone to his own perspective. He holds no desire to impose his newfound clarity on others. But the mere absence of the familiar signals, the expected approval, the gentle flattery, the subtle emotional reinforcement, makes others profoundly uneasy. It's like a piece of music suddenly missing a familiar instrument, creating a subtle discord that listeners might not be able to identify, but which they distinctly feel. Many of his previous friendships, the ones built on those older foundations, begin to gently fade away, not as a result of any conflict or dramatic rupture, but simply because the very ground they stood upon no longer holds. He starts to notice, with quiet understanding, how often relationships are maintained, not through deep evolving connection, but through the shared ritual of complaints, the comfortable groove of routine habits, or the mutual reinforcement of well-worn personal narratives. Once he no longer actively participates in these patterns, once he ceases to contribute to those specific forms of interaction, the connection, no longer actively sustained by those particular energies, naturally weakens on its own. He no longer feels a quiet compulsion to offer agreement, simply for the sake of belonging, to secure his place within a group. He no longer engages in conversations that deliberately avoid substance, that circle endlessly around the periphery of true meaning. And he has absolutely no interest, dear friend, in maintaining ties that require him to shrink himself, to make himself smaller, quieter, or less authentic than he truly is. This profound shift, this internal reorientation, is not a rejection of others, nor is it a turning away from humanity. It is rather the natural and peaceful result of a profound change in what he is willing to invest his precious energy in. True friendship, he now understands, becomes something far quieter, far simpler, and infinitely more rare. It is no longer based on shared illusions, on comforting untruths, but on a deep mutual recognition. It is the exquisite experience of two people who, in their profound inner completeness, do not need each other to feel whole, and yet they consciously, freely, choose to walk alongside one another, without expectation, without demand, in a shared space of authentic presence. These kinds of connections, so precious and profound, cannot be manufactured, cannot be forced into existence through effort or intention. They emerge naturally, if at all, like the delicate bloom of a rare flower, and only when both individuals have released the unconscious burden of seeking to be completed by the other. Most social interaction, dear listener, relies upon a complex, often unspoken set of rules, a silent agreement, if you will, that governs the flow and depth of connection. It's a subtle contract, that often sounds something like this: "You validate my perspective, and in return, I will validate yours." We agree not to delve too deeply into uncomfortable truths. We won't challenge each other's long-held assumptions, and crucially, we will pretend we agree, even if inwardly our truths diverge. He remembers a time when he, too, played by these very rules, for it seemed that everyone around him did the same, and it was the accepted currency of connection. But once he begins to operate, quietly and authentically, outside of these established boundaries, the entire dynamic begins to gently yet inexorably break down. He no longer offers comfort, simply to ease a palpable tension in the air. He doesn't pretend to agree when his inner knowing tells him otherwise. He is simply, quietly, done with the multitude of little acts, the small social performances that serve to keep everyone else feeling safe and comfortable, but which for him left him feeling profoundly false, out of alignment with his deepest truth. This isn't an act of defiance, dear friend, not a rebellious stand against social norms. It is, rather, an emergence of profound clarity. And that clarity, while liberating for him, is often disruptive to the existing social structures, precisely because it exposes how much of everyday life is built upon a mutual, often unconscious, avoidance of deeper truths. People notice, even if they cannot articulate precisely what has changed. They feel the shift in the air, a subtle alteration in the energetic currents of their interactions with him. They sense that something familiar, something they had grown to rely upon, has gone missing. The constant, comforting exchange of validation, reassurance, and distraction. And without him, actively feeding that intricate system, without his participation in that particular form of energetic exchange, the system itself begins to weaken, to lose its coherence, at least in his orbit. Conversations that once flowed easily now begin to feel subtly awkward, strained, as if a vital, unspoken ingredient is suddenly absent. People gradually stop reaching out as much, or their invitations become less frequent. What once felt warm, familiar, and deeply connecting now to them, feels tense and uneasy, not because he has done anything outwardly wrong, not because he has caused any offense, but simply because he has stopped playing along, stopped performing his part in the well-rehearsed social drama. He hasn't rejected anyone, not actively. He has simply, quietly, stopped reinforcing a structure, a way of relating, that he no longer believes in, that no longer aligns with his deepening understanding of truth. As his understanding deepens, as his inner landscape clarifies further, something profoundly unexpected begins to unfold within him. He begins to need less, not just materially, in terms of possessions or external comforts, but deeply, profoundly, in an emotional, social, and even intellectual sense. The incessant seeking, the outward striving, begins to gently quieten. He no longer seeks recognition from others to confirm his worth. He no longer relies on external opinions or affirmations to confirm what he already knows, with a quiet certainty, internally. And as that deep-seated need, that subtle hunger for external validation, gently dissolves, so too do many of the relationships that once required it for their very sustenance. This, dear listener, is the beautiful paradox of his journey. The clearer he becomes within himself, the quieter his outer life becomes. Not because he has intentionally closed himself off, not because he has built walls around his heart, but because so much of what once filled his time and energy was subtly, unconsciously, rooted in a pervasive search for external affirmation, for a reflection of his own worth in the eyes of others. Without that powerful, driving search, without that underlying need, most social activity, while perhaps still present in his periphery, begins to feel distinctly optional, if not, in many instances, entirely unnecessary. He stops trying to be understood by everyone, releasing the subtle burden of needing to explain his quiet shifts, his new perspectives. He no longer measures his presence, his worth, or his impact by how much space he occupies in other people's lives, by the frequency of their calls or the depth of their engagement with him. From the outside, to those still entrenched in the old ways of seeing, this quiet withdrawal might indeed look like a retreat, a pulling back from the world. But inside him, dear friend, it is precisely the opposite. It is a profound settling, a deepening into something solid, something deeply real, something anchored in the unwavering truth of his own being. He still values connection, deeply so, but only when it emerges naturally, organically, without demand, without expectation, and without the need for performance. He hasn't become cold, nor has his heart grown distant. He is simply, profoundly, no longer dependent on others for his sense of self or his inner peace. And in that beautiful detachment, that gentle letting go of external reliance, there is a kind of profound depth, a rich, quiet wisdom that cannot be found through attachment, through the clinging to external validation. Once he wakes up to this deeper reality, once his eyes are truly open to the subtle currents and hidden performances of the world, he finds he simply cannot unsee what he sees. It's as if a veil has been gently lifted, revealing a landscape that was always there but obscured. When he looks inward, into the quiet recesses of his own being, the incessant noise of expectation, of comparison, of external demands, begins to softly quieten, receding into a profound and comforting stillness. And when he looks outward, observing the world around him, he sees that in many profound ways, the world is still asleep, still dreaming its collective dreams, still caught in the intricate dance of illusion. He perceives the false certainty in people's eyes, the unwavering conviction in beliefs that have never been truly questioned, the well-rehearsed roles they perform day in and day out, and the constant, often frantic, movement that seems to mask an inner stillness they have not yet touched, have not yet dared to explore. He no longer envies what others so eagerly call connection, for he now understands with a gentle clarity the often unseen cost of such connection. He recognizes that it frequently demands agreement, a subtle yielding of one's own truth. It demands performance, a continuous playing of a role. It demands conformity, a quiet assimilation into the collective narrative. And he, in his newfound authenticity, simply will not trade his deepest truth, his quiet integrity, for the comforting, yet ultimately superficial, embrace of fitting in. Yet within his quiet heart, there remains a gentle, tender part of him that remembers, a part that quietly hopes, not for bustling crowds, not for constant company, but for someone else awake. Someone who has seen what he has seen, felt what he has felt, and understood what he has understood. Someone who doesn't need him to be smaller, or quieter, or more agreeable, in order to feel safe in his presence. That kind of profound meeting, the deep resonance of awakened souls, is extraordinarily rare, a precious gift that cannot be forced or manufactured. And he would, with quiet resolve, rather wait in the profound peace of his own silence, than pretend, even for a moment, in conversation that lacks truth. So he walks alone, yes, but not because he actively enjoys being apart, not because he takes pleasure in separation. He walks alone because, in a world that is still dreaming its collective dreams, authenticity, the deep unwavering alignment with his own truth, is infinitely more valuable, more precious than mere acceptance. At some point on this quiet journey, dear friend, the solitude he inhabits stops feeling unusual, stops feeling like a temporary state or a deviation from the norm. It simply becomes normal, a natural and comfortable way of being. It isn't empty, Not in the slightest. It is simply quiet, filled with the rich tapestry of his own thoughts, observations and inner experiences. He no longer interprets the distance that naturally arises between himself and others as a problem to be solved, a challenge to be overcome, or a void to be filled. Instead, he sees it for precisely what it is, the natural, gentle result of no longer pretending, of no longer playing a part that was never truly his own. While others around him continue to surround themselves with the comforting hum of noise, with the constant stimulation of external input, he has, through patient practice, learned to live profoundly in stillness, to draw strength and sustenance from its deep well. While many tirelessly chase attention, seeking validation in the gaze of others, he moves through the world with a quiet grace, without asking to be seen, without demanding recognition for his presence. People often assume, perhaps with a touch of sincere concern, that he must feel lonely, as if company, any form of social engagement, is always inherently better, always more desirable than walking alone. But they confuse isolation, a state of unwilling separation, with a profound and chosen absence. He is not absent from life, dear listener. He is profoundly present, perhaps more present than ever before, but he is simply no longer performing. He has come to prefer, with a quiet conviction, the spaciousness that honesty creates, the wide-open expanse of authentic being, over the often suffocating closeness that illusion demands. This, dear friend, is the final, gentle shift. He no longer needs the world to wake up for him to feel whole, to feel complete within his own being. He doesn't require the agreement of others to feel clear in his perceptions, to know the truth of his own understanding. And crucially, he doesn't need external validation, nor the applause of the crowd, to know with an unwavering certainty who he truly is. He walks alone.